effective.
Amid the historic heart of London, the Tower of London stands tall as a silent witness to centuries of power, intrigue, and pain that time has yet to erase. Hidden within its cold stone walls are heart-wrenching screams, grim executions, and wandering ghosts that have haunted this place for centuries. Join us as we uncover the brutal acts of torture that still haunt the Tower of London to this day. At the very heart of historic London stands a tower capable of telling thousands of stories. But this isn't just a tale of stone and mortar. It's the story of a unique historical witness, one that has seen both the glory and tragedy of the British Empire for nearly a millennium. Imagine a place that was both a palace and a prison, where the laughter of royalty echoed down dark corridors that also held prisoners in despair. These stone walls could tell you the fate of Anne Boleyn, who went from a powerful queen to a condemned prisoner awaiting execution, or whisper secrets of Guy Fawkes, the man who dreamed of blowing up Parliament. The tower wasn't just a symbol of power. At one point, it was home to a royal menagerie, housing lions, polar bears, and even elephants. The roars of lions once mingled with the hammering sounds from the royal mint, where coins bearing the images of kings and queens were forged from the 13th to the 19th century. Built in 1066 by William of Normandy, the Tower of London has undergone countless renovations, with each dynasty leaving its mark. Under the hands of Richard the Lionheart, Henry III, and Edward I, the tower became a symbol of medieval military architecture and a repository of stories about intrigue, power, and betrayal. Yet beyond the shimmering allure of power, the tower hides dark, chilling tales. Its cold, shadowy corridors and dungeons have borne witness to the anguished cries from the torture chambers, cries that still seem to echo through the ages, serving as a stark reminder of this place's darker history. Number 1. The rack. One of the most infamous torture devices of the medieval era was the rack. Simple in design but terrifyingly effective, it was a wooden rectangular frame large enough to lay a person flat, with 2 rollers fixed at each end. Prisoners had their wrists and ankles tied with ropes or chains connected to these rollers. When the gears or levers were turned, the rollers pulled in opposite directions, stretching the victim's body. At first, the pulling caused muscle strain, but soon it became a nightmare as joints dislocated, tendons tore, and bones could even be wrenched from the body. The rack didn't just cause physical agony, it was also a tool of psychological torment. The slow, deliberate stretching forced victims to feel every excruciating moment of pain and helplessly watch their bodies distort in ways they couldn't resist. Number 2. The Scavenger's Daughter. In stark contrast to the rack, this device compressed rather than stretched the body. Invented during King Henry VIII's reign by Leonard Skevington, a military officer, the Scavenger's Daughter was quickly adopted to punish prisoners. This contraption forced the victim into a hunched position, with their knees pressed against their chest and their limbs tightly bound. Continuous pressure on internal organs caused difficulty breathing, pooling of blood, and severe internal injuries. In some cases, victims suffocated or suffered heart failure due to prolonged pressure. It was commonly used for interrogating or punishing rebels and heretics. Number 3. Thumbscrews. Though simple, the thumbscrews inflicted excruciating pain. Consisting of 2 metal or wooden bars connected by a screw, this device clamped down on the fingers or toes of the victim. As the screw tightened, the pressure crushed joints, causing severe damage and even pulverizing bones. This tool was often employed to extract confessions or punish political prisoners. Another dark chapter of the Tower of London lies in the tragic fates of historical figures who couldn't escape the merciless grip of political intrigue and ruthless power. From a beautiful lady-in-waiting at court, to the Queen of England, and finally, to her tragic end at the Tower of London. The life of Anne Boleyn is one of the most heartbreaking tales in British royal history. Arriving at court in the 1520s as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon, Anne quickly caught the attention of King Henry VIII, not for her striking beauty, but for her sharp intellect and refined demeanor, shaped by her time at the French court. The king's love for Anne was so intense that he annulled his marriage to Catherine and defied the Catholic Church to establish the Church of England. Yet, after becoming queen in 1533, Anne failed to produce a male heir for the throne. Henry's disappointment, combined with political schemes from her enemies, particularly Thomas Cromwell, led to her swift downfall. In 1536, Anne was imprisoned in the Tower of London, where only 3 years earlier she had celebrated her coronation. Charged with adultery, incest, and treason, allegations lacking substantial evidence, Anne spent her final days in solitary confinement in a small, dark room. To this day, legend has it that her cries of despair can still be heard echoing through the tower. Her trial, held in the Great Hall of the Tower, ended with a death sentence. On the morning of May 19, 1536, Anne walked to her execution site dressed in dignified black, displaying remarkable composure. Even in her final moments, she maintained the grace of a queen. She spoke no words of bitterness, instead praying for peace for the nation and for the king, who had granted her the mercy of being executed by a French swordsman's blade rather than an English axe. Just 10 days after Anne's death, Henry VIII married Jane Seymour, leaving an indelible stain on the history of the British monarchy. Anne's greatest legacy, however, was her daughter, Elizabeth I, who would go on to become one of England's greatest monarchs. Even today, many speak of sightings of Anne's ghost, dressed in regal white, wandering the halls of the Tower, a silent testament to the injustice and tragedy of a queen betrayed by the very love and power she once sought. But Anne's story is not the only tale of injustice from the turbulent reign of Henry VIII. In the cold, dark shadows of the Tower of London, the haunting echo of footsteps still reverberates through its ancient stone halls. These steps are said to belong to Margaret Pole, the last noblewoman of the illustrious Plantagenet line and a victim of one of the most brutal executions in England's history. Born into royal blood as the daughter of George, Duke of Clarence, and the niece of Edward IV and Richard III, Margaret Pole once held a secure position within the Tudor court. She was a trusted companion to Queen Catherine of Aragon and an advisor to Princess Mary Tudor. Yet her royal lineage and connections sealed her fate in the volatile reign of Henry VIII. Margaret's tragedy unfolded in 1539, when letters from her son, Cardinal Reginald Pole, opposing Henry's religious reforms, were discovered. Though there was no evidence linking her to any conspiracies, she was accused of treason and imprisoned. On May 28, 1541, Margaret Pole was led to her execution at the age of 67. She maintained her noble dignity, refusing to kneel before the executioner, proclaiming her innocence to the very end. Horrifyingly, the inexperienced executioner required multiple blows to complete the sentence, turning her death into one of the bloodiest and most gruesome executions in the Tower's history. Even today, many believe that Margaret Pole's spirit roams the Tower's shadowy halls. Witnesses have reported hearing sorrowful cries, while others claim to have seen a figure in Tudor-era clothing wandering silently. These stories add to the eerie mystique of a soul unable to rest even after nearly 500 years. And the tales do not end there. On a February morning in 1601, Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, once a favored courtier of Queen Elizabeth I, fell victim to his own political ambitions and lust for power, ending his life in disgrace, a testament to the brutality of the Tudor era. Devereux was charged with treason after leading a failed coup to seize control of London and force Queen Elizabeth to submit to his demands. His arrogance and ambition led him into a dangerous gamble, and when his plot was exposed, Elizabeth coldly dismissed all pleas for mercy. Traditionally, those convicted of treason faced an exceptionally cruel punishment: hanging, drawing, and quartering. This horrifying sentence began with the condemned being dragged on a wooden frame to the execution site, hanged until near death, disemboweled while still alive, and finally dismembered, with the body parts displayed publicly as a warning. Due to his noble birth and former closeness to the Queen, Devereux was granted mercy and executed by beheading at the Tower of London instead. Even so, his execution was far from swift. The axe fell multiple times before the executioner could complete the sentence, prolonging his agony and amplifying the humiliation. Some accounts state that with each swing of the axe, jeers erupted from the crowd, turning his final moments into a public spectacle. Robert Devereux's death at the Tower of London marked the tragic end of a man who once stood at the pinnacle of power. It also underscored the ruthless nature of Tudor politics, where punishment for treason served as a stark warning to anyone daring to challenge Elizabeth's absolute authority. In the dead of night, the Tower of London stands shrouded in darkness, its cold stone walls bearing witness to centuries of blood and tears. Within these walls lie chilling tales that send shivers down the spine, none more haunting than the legend of the two young princes, Edward V and Richard, Duke of York, who mysteriously vanished after their uncle, Richard III, seized the throne in 1483. The two children were never seen again, and their fate remains cloaked in mystery to this day. 200 years later, in 1674, workers uncovered two small skeletons buried within the tower, believed to belong to the princes. Since then, guards at the tower have reported strange occurrences. The ghostly figures of two children in nightgowns holding hands as they silently walk the halls, or the sound of footsteps and faint sighs echoing in the night. These stories have cemented the tower's reputation as a place of haunting and unresolved injustice, earning it the nickname the Bloody Tower. Scientists from the University of Hertfordshire once studied the paranormal phenomena at the tower, using advanced equipment to measure electromagnetic fields and air currents. They discovered unusually strong magnetic fields and cold drafts in certain areas, which could heighten people's imaginations and evoke feelings of unease. Yet, not all occurrences have a scientific explanation. In 2003, a security camera at Hampton Court Palace captured footage of a mysterious figure in a cloak stepping out of the shadows before vanishing without a trace. The footage challenged even the most rational scientific theories. The ghosts of the Tower of London remain an unsolved enigma. Perhaps within these cold stone walls, the past is still alive, and the forgotten souls whisper their stories to those who dare to listen. Over the centuries, the tower has retained its aura of gloom and mystery, a place where darkness has never truly faded. Are you ready to confront the shadows of history at the Tower of London? Share your thoughts in the comments below and follow this channel to uncover more unsolved mysteries waiting to be explored.